Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Tadasasismad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Shri Giri Govardhan Ki Sankirtan Yagya Ki Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now, is he broadcasting on Facebook, is it? Facebook. Okay. Okay. Only Facebook.
Facebook, YouTube, as usual.
Oh, okay. And you've got a piece of fluff on you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 4. Sati quits her body. Text 7. I'll just read the verse. Tam agatam tatra nakashjanadriyad vimanitan yagya krito bayajjana rite swasriyarvai jananim chasadara premashrukantia parishasvajur muda. Translation. When Sati with her followers reached the arena, because all the people assembled were afraid of Daksha, none of them received her well. No one welcomed her but her mother and sisters, who, with tears in their eyes and with glad faces, welcomed her and talked with her very pleasingly. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The mother and sisters of Sati could not follow the others who did not receive Sati very well. Due to natural affection, they immediately embraced her with tears in their eyes and with loving feelings. This shows that women as a class are very soft-hearted. Their natural affection and love cannot be checked by artificial means. Although the men present were very learned Brahmins and demigods, they were afraid of their superior Daksha. And because they knew that their welcoming Sati would displease him, although in their minds they wanted to receive her, they could not do so. Women are naturally soft-hearted, but men are sometimes very hard-hearted. Tamagatam tatra nakasjanadriyad vimanitam yagya krito bayajjana rite swasriyavai jananim chasadura premashrukanchya parishasvajurmuda. When Sati with her followers reached the arena, because all the people assembled were afraid of Daksha, none of them received her well. No one welcomed her but her mother and sisters, who, with tears in their eyes and with glad faces, welcomed her and talked with her very pleasingly. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nera Vishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatyadesh Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, so the story is continuing. Long story. Yes, and it's going to keep continuing for another couple of chapters or something like that. Something along those lines. And, well, of course, it's Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam is full of instructions and information and just very, very important things. It's just full, just overflowing. So the lessons from this whole pastime, which does continue through this chapter and then the following 3 chapters. So it really is a major pastime. And there are really major lessons to learn. And here's another one in this, or there's 2 even, in this verse and purport. First lesson is that, and it's particularly, well, it's in the verse and purport, but people, when they're, you could say, subordinate, and sometimes not even subordinate, but definitely when they're subordinate to someone else, and that someone else who they're subordinate to adopts strongly a point of view on something, then those people who are subordinate, in some cases or many cases even, they artificially adopt the attitude of the person who they're subordinate to. And we see that. They become, what's the word? Like sycophants. They just agree, yes, men, or yes, women. They become like that. Not always, but if the person really is superior in position to them and is sort of, you could say, a strong person, or, something like that, little heavy person even, then there's such a tendency amongst many people to just, yes, sir, and just agree. And in this way, the powerful person, materially powerful person, gets into a type of bubble in which they are ruling. They're ruling their bubble. But actually, because it's just a bubble and it's not really connected with reality, so in due course, everyone just ends up in a bad situation. Yeah. Particularly, it happens with leaders. Sometimes they call it an ivory tower syndrome. Someone's in a very high position, so that they're above everyone else. An ivory tower means very special, sort of higher position. And they lose touch with reality, and in the end, at least, they make fools of themselves. And the people who are subordinate and who, particularly if the person on a higher level is very strong and really on a higher level, and you got to really watch what you say, otherwise you really get into trouble. Then the people, they just lie. They lie in order to support the lie of the position of the big person. So here we have Daksha. He's a big person. He's a really big person. He's a son of Lord Brahma, and he is a Prajapati. He's a demigod, but amongst the demigods, Prajapatis are also a special category of demigods. And in fact, the Prajapatis give birth to the majority of the demigods. gods. Just like Kasyapa and Aditi. Kasyapa is another son of Lord Brahma, and Aditi is anyway, I don't know if she's a daughter of Brahma, but she's definitely highly positioned. But Kasyapa is I'm just checking. I'm pretty sure he's a son of Brahma. Yes. Oh no. Is he? Okay. So he's not even a son of Brahma, Kasyapa. Is his grandfather. So Daksha is actually a direct son of Lord Brahma. So, and like Kasyapa, who is the son of one of the brothers of Daksha, I think. The son of Lord Brahma. Yeah. So they're brothers, basically. I mean, Daksha and the father of Kasyapa. Kasyapa and Aditi give birth to Lord Indra. Lord Indra. After Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu, the next highest of the administrative, the managers of the universe, is Indra. And all the others, Yamaraj, etc., etc. So many of them are sons of Kasyapa and Aditi. And they're big people. But Kasyapa, Daksha, as Prajapati, is on the level of the father of Lord Indra. That means he's in a very high position, Daksha. And when these people, like, you get these tyrant types like, it's safe to talk about Donald Trump. He was like that. And he would surround himself with people who just say yes and agree and just support whatever he says, even if it was nonsense. In so many cases. Yes. So this is the situation here. Daksha has a particular attitude to Lord Shiva, which is wrong. That's already been discussed. How his attitude towards, Daksha's attitude towards Lord Shiva is wrong. It's completely wrong. So, and it's highly offensive. But because he's a very powerful person, Daksha is a very powerful person. So all these are stated here. All the people assembled were afraid of Daksha. And Prabhupada in the purport makes the point that although the men present were very learned Brahmins and demigods, they were afraid of their superior Daksha. So what to speak of respecting Lord Shiva? They couldn't even respect, respect, but they couldn't even just be nice to Sati, because she's the wife of Lord Shiva. And even though she's the daughter of Daksha. So it's really very interesting situation in those terms. And in this way, people who are really, like Daksha, their illusory positions, even just in very ordinary material terms in day-to-day life in human society now. These very heavy leaders, they get surrounded with all these people who are just yes men and support and all that. And of course, when people are in illusory situations, sooner or later it catches up with them. You cannot escape Maya forever. So that's what's happened here, that all these people are ignoring sati. It's not just Daksha himself, although he does it too, we'll see in due course. But all these other people are just snobbing her. All these people who she knows, because she, as daughter of Daksha, she's a prominent member of demigod society. And she knows all these people. And generally all these people will be very nice to her. But now they're all ignoring her, except for a mother and sisters. And even the mother, anyway, we won't do a spoiler, but it develops the situation in these terms of the people relating with sati, and then sati responding to how they relate. And it's all building up, and it's going to come to, such a shocking situation. Absolutely incredible. Yes, but this is a point to note. This is really a very important point to note. That, as Srila Prabhupada, and as is the standard in Vedic literature, and Srila Prabhupada said on a number of occasions, Brahmins are meant to be independently thoughtful. They're not meant to just, become political pawns or just be influenced by political situations. Therefore, traditionally in Vedic society, even though the Kshatriyas were very powerful and had many people under their control, but they didn't have the Brahmins under their control. And the Brahmins could therefore function as like real advisors to the Kshatriyas, to the kings, and give them real advice, which would help them in very real objective terms, because they were not just kowtowing, or sometimes it's said, it's a bit of an offensive term, but brown-nosing their superior. But that's what it is, really, when you get down to it. It's just gross. It's really gross. And even though for the time being, people, they're happy and they seem to be doing well, but it catches up with them. And in the sort of more third world countries and places, when, there's some tyrant and he's got his team of supporters, like North Korea is typical, fantastically typical. I don't know if you ever saw when the previous Kim, the father of the current one, died some however many years ago, then, even though the people were suffering, there wasn't food, and it was just really difficult for them. But when that that one died, they all came out on the streets, and thousands of them were crying publicly. And these grown men, like business people and managers and really, you would say competent people who know what's going on, but they became reduced to like the state of children. Children just cry sometimes. And they were just crying and, like it was really, for them personally, it was just the biggest disaster of their life. Worse than their parents dying or the wife dying or the children dying, which, generally upsets people really a lot. But this fellow dying was like much worse. They were just completely, it was totally ludicrous, madness. But that's what happens. And sooner or later the bubble bursts. Well, and what happens, like in African and other places, some tyrant is controlling with an iron hand, and he's got his team of supporters who will just do anything and say anything, whatever he likes. But then the tyrant gets kicked out. And then that leader and all the people who were his team of admirers and so on, they all get killed. Talk about a person's bubble being burst. Well, that happens. I mean, like Liberia, if you know a little of the history there, gosh, what they did to the previous ruler. Oh, my Lord. We can't even say, it's just too horrible. Yeah. Yes, so anyway, this is the situation. And we, of course, Srila Prabhupada was training, at least you could say, his full-time disciples, basically, particularly them, to be Brahmins. And a Brahmin has to be independently thoughtful. And also in this, it's in this canto, fourth canto, is the story of the appearance of Maharaj Prithu, and before him was Vena. And Vena was one such tyrant, incredible tyrant. He would just kill people. Even as a child, the description is, even as a child, when he'd have a game like, children have cops and robbers and all these sorts of games where there are imaginary battles with weapons, but it's all imaginary. But Vena would actually kill his friends. He would actually kill them in their sort of cops and robbers or war games, whatever, these games that youngish children have. So he was so bad, so incredibly bad. It was illegal to glorify God. He had to be glorified in that way. And if anyone glorified God, they'd be killed. So he was just, it would be hard to be worse. But when it became clear that the situation and everything was irreparable, nothing could be done to help him or help the situation, the Brahmins killed him. They cursed him. The Bhagavatam says they killed him with sharp words. They didn't have to use weapons or, employ some assassins or whatever, that sort of business. They just uttered curses, and that was it, he was dead. So the Brahmins, when Brahmins are really independently thoughtful and they're really qualified, then they're in a position to take action when some bizarre situation like this comes up. So that's one point. And the second point, of course, is how, even though everybody else was just negative towards Sati, but her mother and her sisters were, they greeted her very affectionately, and talked with her very pleasingly and nicely. You could say, as if everything was fine, something like that. Yes. Of course, how Sati reacts. Anyway, we'll see tomorrow, I guess. But, yeah. Anyway, but they respond very nicely, very warmly, very affectionately, in very loving ways. The mother is just like her mother, and sisters are just like her sisters. Yes, and Srila Prabhupada makes the point that even though they must have known, the men knew that if they received Sati nicely, Daksha would be displeased with them. And the women probably knew that. Anyway, whether they did or not, the point is that women are naturally soft-hearted, but men are sometimes very hard-hearted. I mean, some of them can be so fantastically hard-hearted. It's just amazing, truly amazing. I was reading about, I forget who it was, but in the time of the British, before guns, actually, it was the guillotine, you know the guillotine? Yeah, chops people's heads off. It was invented in France in the time of the French Revolution. And then the manufacturers wanted to take it to England to get some orders for their product. And it was the owner, the big fellow, was either the king or the army head of France. You know, he was a really big man by their standards. And he wanted to demonstrate how it works. So he said to the Britisher, who was like, the government purchaser or whatever, he said, can you just call one of your soldiers? Yeah. And just get him to put his head there and we'll just, cut his head off. And the Britisher was horrified. How can we do that? We can't kill someone. And the Frenchman was, what? Why not? I'm trying to demonstrate this thing for you. I mean, he's just like a super peasant, and just nothing matters. You can literally do anything with him, and it's of no consequence. So the Frenchman was shocked. That you mean you take them seriously? No, he couldn't believe it. Yeah. And another one I read about was was it Angola, I think? either Angola or Mozambique, during their revolutions, in the transition from, in both cases, Portuguese domination to being independent countries and like established. So there was civil war, and so this one mercenary, his name was Callan. You can look him up in Google, Callan, Callan, and he adopted a military rank. He called himself Colonel Callan. And someone had some new gun, some new type of gun, which was meant to be, some special gun. And Callan wanted it demonstrated. So he called one of the, they're all African, I think Angolan, anyway, either Angolan or Mozambican. He just called one and told him, open your mouth. And he stuck the gun in the fellow's mouth and just shot him, just to demonstrate the gun. This is extreme. This is really extreme. But there is more extreme. There are more extreme. Like in the, First World War, the British arranged an artificial famine in India. You know about that? You didn't hear about that? Shh. And thousands died because the cost of, the British took all the rice. And so the cost of rice went through the roof completely. And your average person just could not afford enough at all. And they died. Thousands died, yeah. And that was First World War, I think, or maybe second, but it was one of the world wars. And there are other examples too. So it says here, Prabhupada says, women are naturally soft-hearted, but men are sometimes very hard-hearted. Women can also be hard-hearted sometimes. Oh my gosh. But men, generally men are sort of stronger physically and less sentimental, less emotional. So in history, there have definitely been women who are really hard-hearted, like rulers, really hard-hearted. But as Prabhupada's saying, women by nature are more prone to be soft-hearted. Women cry much more easily. Having myself counseled so many men and so many women about, difficult situations in their lives. And, it's really not at all uncommon for the woman to start crying while she's describing her difficulties. It's really very common indeed. But men, it hardly happens that they'll start crying. Yeah, only in some extreme situation, usually, in my experience, put it that way. So women are naturally soft-hearted, and this is the situation here, that Sati's mother and sisters, they know how Daksha feels. At least that they know very clearly. But because of the natural relationships as mother and as sisters, they just couldn't stop themselves. They just wanted to, and they just did, greet her as their hearts dictated, very affectionately. And that's nice. And it's interesting, in keeping with this point, even though it's transcendental, so it's not absolutely the same, but it's, there's a connection. We see the topmost devotees of all are all ladies. Srimati Radharani, the gopis, they're the topmost. There are no men equal to them. Some of the cowherd boys are, advanced, have some sort of element of madhurya or ability to appreciate madhurya, something perhaps more like that. But the real madhurya, that's exclusively the ladies, the gopis. Yes. And when you get down to, so to speak, down to the parental devotees in Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda is the top. She's the top, and Nanda Maharaj is next. Yes, so ladies are like that. And this is, in many situations, it's a very good thing. And we see, even in our own congregation, there tends to be more ladies than men. There tends to be. It's an interesting point. It's a very important point, actually. Because Krishna consciousness has naturally a very emotional element in it. Yeah. And ladies are attracted by that. Of course, on the other hand, there is another side to that picture. And that other side is that women may sometimes become too much emotionally affected and not be able to deal with situations intelligently and objectively and practically. They just get overpowered by their emotions. Whereas men, on the other hand, generally, or at least in so many cases, are able to be more philosophical. There are ladies who are philosophical, definitely. But there tends to be more men who are philosophical and able to deal with stress and strain better than many ladies can. So there's another side to that coin also. But ladies, it's nice for them to utilize their soft-hearted natures in Krishna's service. And for men, it's very, and for the ladies to beware of the tendency to become possibly bewildered by feelings and emotions. And for men, it's very good for them to use their intelligence, their ability to hopefully be objective and analytical, and therefore be able to understand how to act, particularly in difficult situations. But at the same time, to be very wary of being hard-hearted and callous. So these things we can learn here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I guess that's it. Okay, Haribol, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.